Natural selection is all around us, whether we know it or not. That's why it's so important to understand the basics of natural selection. Whether you have an exam the next day on natural selection and you want to study for it, or you're simply trying to understand natural selection out of curiosity, I beg you, this video will help a lot. By finishing this video, you're going to be helping yourself, and also you're going to be helping me more than anything you'll ever know. So, this is relatively simple, and without further ado, let's get started. A famous example of natural selection is DDT and mosquitoes. In the 1960s, people wanted to get rid of mosquitoes, which were causing malaria to the people. And malaria, they killed off a lot of people. So naturally, they wanted to kill off the mosquitoes. At first, when the mosquitoes were sprayed by DDT, they died off. But then, they didn't. Why? Well, the answer, it lies in natural selection. After the first batch of mosquitoes died off, the remaining mosquitoes, maybe just 100 left or something, those were all DDT resistant. And since DDT resistance is a heritable trait, which that means that those mosquitoes' offsprings will also be DDT resistant. So after several generations, the surviving DDT resistant mosquitoes, they will be able to reproduce, and eventually, over a long time, those mosquitoes will be able to get back to its original population. And this time, when you spray DDT onto those mosquitoes, it wouldn't work because all those mosquitoes will now be DDT resistant. This is a classic example of how natural selection can change an entire population. And in the next slide, we'll be explaining it in more detail. There are 3 necessary properties for natural selection to happen: overproduction and competition for resources, individual variation in heritable traits, and those 2 lead to unequal reproductive success. Now, what we mean by overproduction and competition for resources is basically you need to have an environment that can't support all the organisms in it, or else why would any of the organism genes types want to die off? Individual variation in heritable traits means that the organisms in the environment, they need to have different traits, and some of those traits need to have reproductive advantages relative to the other traits in the other organisms. And those 2, they lead to unequal reproductive success, which means that more reproductive advantages leads to unequal reproductive success, causing some organisms' gene type to be more likely to survive and reproduce than others. And this, over generations and generations, causes natural selection. As humans, we're naturally prone to finding symmetric things more beautiful, and because they're more beautiful, we're more attracted to them. Is that something just wrong with that little brain of ours, or is it a sign of natural selection? The definition of cephalization is animals with a definite head that first encounter food, danger, and other stimuli. For instance, humans, turtles, ants, a bunch of things. But something that isn't a cephalized organism might be something like a microbacteria or something that doesn't have a definite head. And these cephalized organisms, in these cephalized organisms, beauty is usually seen as symmetrical. So if your face is perfectly symmetrical, you're more likely to be beautiful. And you can take many celebrities with symmetrical faces, and they're usually considered beautiful because of those symmetrical faces. Of course, beauty isn't only symmetry. I'm kind of simplifying, but symmetry is a key indicator of beauty, for humans at least. And evolutionary symmetric faces can mean that genes mean genes that manage to grow despite environmental stress. For instance, let's say you're battling the heat or something every day, but your face still manages to stay symmetrical. That means your genes are pretty strong, and which is an indicator that you have healthy genes. So maybe symmetric faces can mean healthy genes, which is the reason why we're attracted to them. This might explain why people are more prone to like symmetric or beautiful faces, not solely because the fact that they're symmetrical, but because those symmetrical faces indicate healthy genes. Now that you have a good foundation of what natural selection is, we'll be talking about a few important definitions. Not a lot, just a few. The first of which is heritable traits. The basic definition is a trait that gets passed on to their offspring. For instance, DDT resistance is a heritable trait because mosquitoes who are DDT resistant have offsprings that are also DDT resistant. And natural selection only works on heritable traits, which means that if DDT resistance wasn't heritable, natural selection wouldn't work on mosquitoes and they would probably die off. And certain mutations are heritable, whereas others aren't. And mutations. What are mutations? That leads us to our next definition. Mutations. They are simply changes in individual bases in the DNA. So a DNA, it's this big long chain of basically letters, let's just say, and A, G, T, and C. And when let's say one of the G's gets swapped with, let's say, a C, that is a mutation. And these DNA mistakes they can be caused by a mistake in the DNA, like when it gets copied, there's a mistake, or it could be chemical radiation, like your exposure to the sun, that can cause mutations in the DNA. And these mutations can lead to very harmful diseases like Parkinson's or maybe cancer. However, though these mutations can be deadly, they're also necessary for evolution. They cause variation, and as we saw, variation is one of the 3 things necessary for natural selection. Before we end this thing, we will talk about one more thing, and that's the common myth of natural selection. Natural selection doesn't affect individuals. They affect populations. For instance, DDT resistance doesn't happen over one mosquito doesn't all of a sudden become DDT resistant. The entire population of mosquitoes become DDT resistant. For instance, giraffes, they didn't all of a sudden grow necks an individual giraffe didn't grow necks to be able to reach tall trees. No, the population of giraffes over generations and generations were more prone to have larger necks because natural selection affects populations and not individuals. I'm gonna let that sit in your brain. Evolution is all around you. I really hope that this video helped you learn something and that you won't forget it. But also, I really hope that if you want to support this show, it's actually really simple. Just click like and click subscribe. You are helping me more than you'll ever know. I know I said this in the beginning, that if you finish the video, you're also helping me more than you ever know. But if you get here, you probably finished the video. And just one more thing you can do is like and subscribe. Thank you so much, and I really hope you enjoyed this video, and check out my channel, Relatively Simple, and I'm Helena Shreya.